hopeless. For the thousandth time.
For the thousandth time.
I love you as I shall always love you because you're part of me.
She was Hollywood's first true, blonde bombshell. A dazzling goddess whose platinum hair and sultry presence reshaped the image of screen beauty forever. Jean Harlow wasn't just another starlet of the 1930s, she was an icon. Adored by millions, and the face that defined an entire era of glamour. Yet in June 1937, at only 26 years old, her meteoric life came to a sudden and shocking end. The official story was simple: acute kidney failure. But almost immediately, whispers began to spread. Some claimed she had been poisoned. Others believed MGM, desperate to protect its golden image, had concealed the truth about her health. And then there was the shadow of her scandalous marriage to producer Paul Bern, who himself had died under mysterious circumstances just 5 years earlier. Found shot to death in their home. How could Hollywood's brightest star, at the very height of her fame, vanish so suddenly? Was Jean Harlow truly the victim of illness? Or was there something far more sinister at play? Something Hollywood never wanted the world to know?
Scrambled eggs for everybody!
Hey.
Hey, Dad, can Sonia and I go to the mall?
Jean Harlow was born Harleen Harlow Carpenter on March 3, 1911, in Kansas City, Missouri. From the beginning, her life was shaped by instability and ambition. Her mother, Jean Poe Carpenter, known as Mother Jean, was a strong-willed woman with dreams of Hollywood stardom for herself. When those dreams faded, she redirected all of her ambitions onto her daughter. Harlow's father, Montclair Carpenter, was a dentist who had little interest in show business. The marriage between her parents was turbulent, and by the time Jean was still very young, they had separated. This left Mother Jean in control of her daughter's upbringing, molding her into what she believed Hollywood demanded. Harleen was a shy, sensitive child, far from the seductive screen siren she would later become. She was intelligent and loved reading, but her mother insisted on grooming her for stardom. At age 16, after a brief and impulsive teenage marriage, Harleen moved to Los Angeles with her husband. Though she had no ambition to act, fate, and her mother's persistence, would soon push her directly into Hollywood's orbit. It was in Los Angeles that Harleen began to frequent film studios. Initially as a favor to friends, with her striking platinum blonde hair and luminous skin, she stood out instantly. Casting agents couldn't ignore her, and soon Harleen Carpenter adopted a new identity, Jean Harlow. The name alone would become synonymous with sex appeal, glamour, and danger. But beneath this transformation, there was always the shadow of Mother Jean's control. The young woman who became Hollywood's blonde bombshell was still, at heart, a girl being driven by forces around her: family expectations, industry exploitation, and a mother's relentless ambition. This pressure would follow her into adulthood, shaping both her career and the tragedies to come.
From now on, or I'm going to break that pretty little neck of yours just like it was a...
Unlike many stars who trained for years, Jean Harlow's path to Hollywood was far from traditional. She attended the prestigious Ferry Hall School in Illinois, but her education ended abruptly when she married at just 16 years old to Charles "Chuck" McGrew, the wealthy heir of a real estate fortune. It was a youthful, impulsive marriage, one that her domineering mother did not oppose, since it meant financial stability. Moving to Los Angeles with her husband, Harleen Carpenter had no intention of pursuing a career in film. She was content to live the life of a young socialite, but Hollywood was impossible to escape. Through friends, she began visiting casting calls at studios. At first, she was simply driving her friends to auditions. But one day, a casting director noticed her. With her pale platinum hair, luminous skin, and stunning figure, she was unforgettable. By 1928, she was appearing in small, uncredited roles in silent films. Slowly, she caught the eye of filmmakers. But it wasn't until Howard Hughes cast her in Hell's Angels, 1930, that Jean Harlow exploded into stardom. The film was one of Hollywood's first sound epics, and Harlow's performance, and her famous line, "Would you be shocked if I put on something more comfortable?" made her an overnight sensation. Her platinum blonde image became her trademark. Studios bleached her hair to an almost metallic sheen, creating a look that no other actress could replicate. MGM, recognizing her appeal, marketed her as the ultimate sex symbol of the 1930s. Audiences adored her sultry presence, but critics dismissed her as just a pretty face. Jean, however, was determined to prove them wrong. She worked tirelessly, taking on more demanding roles in films like Red Dust, 1932, opposite Clark Gable, and Dinner at 8, 1933. With each performance, she grew in skill and confidence, showing the world that beneath the glamour was a gifted actress. Yet behind the rising fame was an unsteady personal life. Her marriage to Chuck McGrew collapsed under the weight of drinking, jealousy, and her growing career. By her early 20s, Jean Harlow was already divorced, a star in her own right, and on a trajectory that would make her one of the most iconic actresses of Hollywood's golden age. But as her star rose higher, so too did the shadows surrounding her, shadows that would one day lead to mystery, scandal, and tragedy. By the early 1930s, Jean Harlow had become more than just a rising actress, she was a cultural phenomenon. MGM recognized her potential and signed her to a contract that would turn her into one of the studio's brightest jewels. With her platinum blonde hair, playful smirk, and sultry energy, Harlow became the screen's original, blonde bombshell, a title that would follow her for the rest of her career. Her breakout came in Red Dust, 1932. Opposite Clark Gable, playing the provocative Vantini, Harlow stole every scene with her sharp wit and bold sensuality. Audiences adored her, and critics began to acknowledge her comedic timing and charisma. She wasn't just a symbol of desire, she was funny, daring, and real. The hits followed in rapid succession. Dinner at 8, 1933, where she played the spoiled socialite Kitty Packard, cemented her as both a glamour icon and a comedienne. In Bombshell, 1933, she portrayed a movie star exhausted by fame, a role eerily reflective of her own life. And in Reckless, 1935, and Susie, 1936, she continued to prove her versatility, balancing glamour with vulnerability. By mid-decade, Jean Harlow was MGM's top box office draw, rivaling Greta Garbo and Norma Shearer. She was earning over $3 a week, a staggering salary during the Great Depression. Her influence stretched beyond film. Women across America rushed to bleach their hair, desperate to replicate the Harlow look. She became a fashion icon, a sex symbol, and a household name. But beneath the glittering image was a young woman under immense pressure. MGM worked her relentlessly, using her image to sell movies, publicity stunts, and products. While the world saw the confident, laughing blonde on screen, Jean's private life was much darker. Failed marriages, scandalous rumors, and personal tragedies haunted her, casting shadows that even Hollywood's brightest lights couldn't erase. Jean Harlow had reached the pinnacle of fame, but as the world adored her, destiny was quietly preparing a series of tragedies that would shake Hollywood, and ultimately lead to her mysterious and untimely death.
Connie,
Will you, Bill?
Will I?
If Jean Harlow's screen persona was bold, playful, and irresistible, her real-life love story was far more turbulent, marked by heartbreak, scandal, and tragedy. Her first marriage, to Charles Chuck McGrew at just 16, ended quickly. Chuck's wealth provided comfort, but his jealousy and drinking tore the relationship apart. By 1929, barely 2 years later, Jean was divorced and already beginning to step into Hollywood's spotlight. But it was her second marriage that became one of Hollywood's darkest scandals. In 1932, at the height of her fame, Jean married MGM executive and producer Paul Bern. At first, it seemed like a perfect match. Bern was well-connected, respected, and offered stability in the ruthless world of show business. Yet just 2 months after their glamorous wedding, Bern was found dead in their home, killed by a gunshot wound to the head. The official report claimed it was suicide, with a note suggesting impotence and despair. But Hollywood insiders whispered darker theories. Some believed Bern's death was a murder, covered up by MGM to protect Jean's career. Others claimed he was killed by a secret lover from his past. To this day, Paul Bern's death remains one of the great unsolved mysteries of Hollywood's golden age, and Jean Harlow was forever tied to it. Though cleared of any suspicion, Jean was devastated. The scandal nearly destroyed her career. But MGM doubled down, using publicity and careful press management to protect their blonde bombshell. The tragedy gave her an even more enigmatic aura in the public's eyes, making her both more vulnerable and more desirable. Jean would marry once more, to cinematographer Harold Rawson in 1933. But that union was short-lived, lasting less than a year. Afterward, she avoided matrimony, instead finding companionship in high-profile romances, including a passionate affair with actor William Powell. Powell was perhaps the closest she came to lasting love, but their relationship was complicated by illness, distance, and Jean's relentless work schedule. Despite her glamorous image, Jean Harlow's love life was riddled with heartbreak, mystery, and unanswered questions. And just like the roles she played on screen, her real life seemed scripted for tragedy.
About men? You don't want Bill. Oh, no? Oh, I know. You've got him now. In name, anyway.
By the mid-1930s, Jean Harlow was not just a star, she was Hollywood's golden goose. MGM carefully controlled her image, presenting her as the dazzling, carefree, blonde bombshell. But behind the curtain, scandal and tragedy stalked her life. The biggest shadow remained the mysterious death of her husband Paul Bern. Though MGM worked tirelessly to spin the narrative as a suicide, whispers never stopped. Was Bern killed by a jealous lover from his past? Did MGM executives intervene to cover up a more sinister crime? For Jean, the tragedy was both personal and professional. She lost a husband, and with him came a permanent cloud of suspicion and morbid fascination from the public. But the scandals didn't stop there. Jean's personal life was constantly scrutinized. Every romance, every friendship, every public appearance fed into Hollywood's rumor mill. She was linked to actors, directors, and millionaires. Yet beneath the glamour, Jean struggled with exhaustion, stress, and a body that was beginning to fail her. Behind the scenes, those closest to her knew she had serious health problems. She often complained of fatigue, bloating, and recurring illnesses. Some claimed she suffered from scarlet fever as a child, which left her kidneys permanently weakened. Others whispered about more shocking possibilities: poisoning, untreated infections, or even complications from the extreme beauty regimens MGM insisted she endure. Still, MGM refused to slow her down. They pushed Jean through grueling filming schedules, insisting that the show must go on, no matter how sick she felt. Publicly, she sparkled. Privately, she was deteriorating. By 1936, tragedy struck again when her beloved Mother Jean, fell ill, further weighing on Jean's fragile spirit. And though she found comfort in her relationship with William Powell, even that was marred by distance and uncertainty. Jean Harlow's life was beginning to mirror the tragic heroines she often played on screen. For the world, she was still Hollywood's radiant goddess. But in reality, her body and her spirit were running out of time. In the spring of 1937, Jean Harlow was in the middle of filming Saratoga with Clark Gable when her health began to collapse. She suffered from nausea, swollen limbs, and constant fatigue. On set, Gable and others noticed her face was puffy, her skin pale, and she often struggled to remember lines. While MGM insisted she was simply run down, the truth was far more serious. By early June, Jean was bedridden with a high fever. Friends described her as delirious, her once radiant beauty fading before their eyes. Doctors eventually diagnosed her with acute kidney failure, a condition then untreatable. On June 7, 1937, just days after her 26th birthday, Jean Harlow, Hollywood's original platinum goddess, was gone. Her death shocked the world. Fans couldn't believe that a woman so young, so vibrant, could be taken so suddenly. MGM announced the official cause as uremia, a complication of kidney disease. But rumors immediately spread. Some claimed she had been poisoned, possibly by jealous rivals or even by her own studio. Others whispered about botched medical treatments, or that MGM delayed hospitalizing her to avoid disrupting Saratoga's filming schedule. Adding to the mystery was MGM's response. Terrified of damaging their golden image, the studio worked relentlessly to control the narrative. They minimized her illness in press releases, barred journalists from accessing medical details, and quickly completed Saratoga using body doubles to finish her scenes. To the public, Jean Harlow's death became another Hollywood tragedy, but behind closed doors. Many believed there was much more to the story. Her funeral was attended by thousands, with William Powell, devastated, serving as one of the chief mourners. Fans lined the streets, weeping for the woman who had been the embodiment of glamour and vitality. In less than a decade, Jean Harlow had gone from an unknown teenager to one of the biggest stars in the world, only to leave it all behind in a haze of mystery and speculation. To this day, no one can say for certain, did Jean Harlow die from natural causes? Or was her death the result of secrets Hollywood never wanted us to uncover?
The story. Constance Allenbury marries bigamist.
If you publish that, you'll have another libel suit on your hands. I'm not.
Decades after her untimely death, Jean Harlow remains one of the most captivating enigmas of Hollywood's golden age. Her influence as the original, blonde bombshell, paved the way for later icons like Marilyn Monroe and Jane Mansfield. But unlike them, Harlow's story feels unfinished, cut short at just 26, leaving behind more questions than answers. Her films, from Red Dust to Dinner at 8 and Bombshell, are still studied today, not only for their glamour but for the spark she brought to every role. Critics who once dismissed her as mere decoration now recognize her as a skilled actress with impeccable comedic timing and surprising emotional depth. Yet her legend is inseparable from her mysteries. Was her husband Paul Bern truly a suicide, or a victim of foul play? Did MGM conceal the severity of her illness to protect their profits? And most haunting of all, was Jean Harlow's death preventable? Had Hollywood shown more care for the woman behind the platinum mask? For fans, she remains frozen in time, forever young, forever radiant, forever the goddess who embodied both the allure and the dangers of Hollywood. Her tragic end serves as a chilling reminder of what the studio system demanded, and destroyed, in its pursuit of perfection. Jean Harlow's story leaves us with an unsettling thought. When we look back at the Golden Age, how many other secrets were buried? How many stars were sacrificed? And how many truths were never meant to be known? Because in Hollywood, behind every glittering smile and shimmering spotlight, there is always a shadow. And Jean Harlow's shadow may be one of the darkest of them all.
Practically as my wife.
Well, would you ask your wife to hook up with that ape?